All right, so my name is Marcel Baudouin. I'm going to be going over the resolutions that were presented to the 2025 PIPS AGM. This is something I've done a number of times before. I'm just going to go basically over it, and there's going to be four recommendations. It's either going to be Marcel in favor, Marcel opposed, SP in favor, or SP opposed. Um, we do not whip the vote. You can vote however you want. The ones that have SP in favor or SP opposed, those are ones that the executive committee that I said were important enough that the SP group should be put their weight behind, and no one pushed back against it. So, in the end, these are my opinions. They should not be taken as opinions of the SP group as a whole. If you have any questions or comments, throw up your hand in the chat or just when I'm done each resolution, let me know. And we'll get to it. So let's see if I can share my screen. Where's the application? Where is it? So can everybody see the resolutions analysis title page?
Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect.
Yeah,
All right, so start off with the financial resolutions. F01 and F02, these are standard. Present the budget, present the auditors, or present the financial statement, present the budget. We have to do this every year. This is standard. So, you can vote against it if you don't, if you want to, but I'm not even going to put a recommendation for this. It's just standard. It has to be done in order for PIPS to function. Next up, F03. This is dues increase to cap the dues increase or to peg the dues increase to CPI, the Consumer Price Index, with a cap of 3%, which works out to about $270 a month, or $32.42 a year. I am mildly in favor of this, if only because I find it annoying over every 2 or 3 years that we do an AGM that the board of directors comes begging to us for money. So I would much rather have it pegged automatically. But again, I have no strong feelings on this. And I'll pause at the end of each slide to give people a chance if they want to throw up their hands. Um, I only can see one person on my screen. So if you have a comment, just unmute your mic and ask a question. Going once. All right. Next up, F04. This is to change the way the dues are calculated. Currently, we have a flat rate in that everybody from the very first BI1 who's starting at level 1, step 1, to a PC, whatever the top level is at the top step, top level, we all pay the same dues amount. What this one is proposing is to change it to that from a flat fee to be a percentage of the salary at 0.95% of the maximum salary for group and level. I am against this because the way it's set up, it would punish the people at the lower ends of the salary scale. For example, BI2, there's about a $25,000 spread from step 1 to step 8. BI3s, it's almost 30,000, and that is repeated in across classifications. The more steps a classification has, the higher the difference between the lowest end of the level and the highest end of the level. And it's putting an increased burden on those who are just starting their career or who are just promoted to a new step or a new level. If they were going to peg it to this, I would much rather be pegged to 0.95% of the minimum salary for group or level. But again, I am against this. I think it would just result in a lot more confusion and work to be done at both the PIPS level and at Miramichi and Phoenix. And I really am against, on a personal level, anything that has people in Miramichi sticking their grubby little fingers into our paychecks. I like getting paid. I like having my members getting paid. And I don't want them to do something that's going to result in lots of, I didn't get paid. What do I do? Next up, bylaws resolutions. That was all four financial resolutions. Bylaws resolutions. Important note, starting in 2026, the board of directors is capping the number of in-person delegates at 500. So the remainder will be virtual. Now, don't know how that's going to be calculated, how they're going to choose who's going to be virtual, who's going to be in person. And this was confirmed at the advisory council meeting that I was at on yesterday, Friday, Saturday. Where it was confirmed to us that the 2026 hotel rooms in Toronto are capped at 500. So there will only be 500 delegates at the PIPS AGM in 2026. So with that being said, B01 AGM size. This was put forward by the board of directors to change it from one for every 200 members, one delegate for every 200 members, to one delegate for every 400 members. That brings us down to 506 delegates. The SP recommendation is in favor of this. The AGM has gotten overly large. I think we're close to 800, if not 850 delegates this time around, which is just an incredible cost. In addition, at that size, there are no hotels in Ottawa that can take us, and there are very few hotels in Montreal or Toronto that can handle a group of that size with catering and the IT and all the support. And those that do, they charge us a premium above and beyond their normal rates because of our size, because of the work they have to go on. Reducing the amount of delegates to something smaller opens us up being able to come back to Ottawa, which is going to significantly reduce the cost of the AGM because you've got an extra day of salary reimbursement that's not counted, at least one extra day of hotels that aren't counted, and a significant amount of travel that's not counted because I think it's about 45% of the PIPS membership is in the NCR. Sorry, go back there, give people a chance if they have any questions.
Sorry, Marcel, did you say the hotel in Toronto is being capped at 500 rooms? So even so 506 delegates, you're saying that 6 people wouldn't have rooms if everyone wanted to go.
Those 6 people would be now it's possible that they may be able to add another 6 rooms for those delegates, but that's assuming that we don't have any workforce adjustment, any retirements because of the changes to the pension. But right now they've capped it at 500 rooms.
Why? But where does that come from? Like, obviously we're using more than potentially 500 rooms now.
Yeah.
So where has that 500, they just arbitrarily have the power to decide that?
Yeah, the board of directors, the bylaws indicate how many people can attend the AGM, but it doesn't require that they all be in-person delegates. So the board
but virtual is a modern kind of concept, a very recent kind of concept, and virtual is a very different experience. So how would they then? Are they going to do a lottery determining who goes virtual, who goes
that
whatever?
That hasn't been decided yet, or if the board of directors has decided, they haven't shared it yet.
But it would be a requirement to have a change of the bylaw to stop them from making arbitrary deciding, because they could just decide there could be 100 people in person and everyone else be virtual. They could decide it could always be virtual, right?
Yep, that could be the decision that could be made.
Okay, thanks.
That's within the realm of the purview, the roles and responsibilities that the board of directors has.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Like I said, they might be able to find if this stays at 506 delegates, they might be able to ask the Toronto, the Rogers Centre, wherever holding it, to find another 6 rooms. It's easier to do that than to find another 300 odd rooms. Yes, Martin.
Just a quick question. Based on the ratio 1 to 200, and so this year we'll have close to 500 delegates. So if we move to the ratio 1 to 400, so the number of delegates will return to about 300 delegates?
No, the 506 delegates, that's with 1 for 400. That's with 1 for 400. 1 for 200, right now we're up at about 850. The number changes a bit because there are the consultation team presidents. That's a fixed number at 43, I believe. The retired members guild is fixed at 8, and the board of directors is fixed at 15. So it's really only the regions and groups that are impacted and the separate employers that are impacted by the 1 for 200 to change to 1 to 400.
Okay, thanks.
And Marcel, I think the plan is also to bring back the AGM in Ottawa or in the NCR.
Yep.
From what I heard, for future years, because that's cost less money as well.
Yep.
So I think it will be 500 in person in the NCR. That's what they are planning.
Yeah.
For 2026, the plan is the Shaw Center or Rogers Center, whatever it is now.
I think 2026 is it still in Toronto?
Okay.
No, Ottawa.
Ottawa? Okay. So yeah. So I misspoke earlier. I thought it was still in Toronto, but yeah. So it's reserved for Ottawa with at least some people are going to be virtual.
Yep. Perfect.
So next, B02. This is the revision of bylaw 17, which changes the Human Rights and Diversity Committee. This is just a housekeeping to change the current language. The current language in the bylaw is outdated based on the language that's in the Employment Equity Act. So that's just to bring the bylaw in line with the Employment Equity Act. I'm in favor of this. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't change how it works. It just changes the language so that it matches with the current law, current act. B03 to B06 are just cleaning up of bylaws 1 to 9. This was done based on consultation with external governance experts and is all housekeeping. It doesn't change how things work. It just cleans up the language to make it clearer. So I'm in favor of this. They've started this last year, I believe, with a bunch of bylaws, and to make it easier for everybody, they're doing it. They're going to do it over a couple of years to bring the bylaws into a sort of more modern language. So next up is B7, B10, and B11. These were submitted by the Advisory Council, and these all are just changing in the wording to reflect the current practice of how the Advisory Council works. So again, this is just housekeeping. I can go into it at the end if people want. Like I said, it's just literally just housekeeping to change the language to reflect how it's actually working right now. It doesn't change anything, doesn't add any costs or any extra meetings or anything like that. Next up is the Retired Members Guild AGM delegates. This is to change the Retired Members Guild delegates from being what it currently is, which is all of their executive committee, to 1 for every 200 delegates. Now, in the short term, this changes us from 8 to 11 delegates. Currently if we currently have at 1 for every 200 members. However, once the AGM total size is decreased to, say, 1 for 400, it's going to decrease the amount of Retired Members Guild delegates in the AGM. And anybody who's spoken to me at any amount of time about retired members know that I am not a fan of retired members taking part and making decisions about what happens, how it impacts regular members. So it's a bit backwards or sort of weird thinking, but I'm in favor of this because in the long run, it's going to take some of the power out of the hands of the Retired Members Guild. So B09 is the AGM delegates. Important to note, this is not in conflict with other motions. So this is if, because of membership changes, the delegate count increases above 500, they will adjust the size pro rata to have a total max of 500 delegates. So this is, we are, the SP group is in favor of this. It puts a hard cap of 500 delegates, but it allows the math to be changed. It only impacts us if we end up having a membership such that we are above 500 delegates.
So Marcel, it just means that whatever, if we go for one delegate to by 200 to one by 400, whatever formula, there's still a cap of 500.
Yeah. And that
It doesn't say it's in person,
no,
right? So it's just really the maximum size.
Yeah.
Okay.
The board of directors and the advisory council, and as you'll see, a lot of groups and regions are very well aware that the AGM costs a lot of money. And so there's a lot of motions that are put forward to try to reduce that. And because a lot of them were put forward through regional councils or group AGMs, it was not possible for the bylaws and policy committee or the resolution subcommittee to go back and say, do you want to drop yours because this one has already been put forward? Because it would require the AGM to be reconvened, re-vote upon, or the regional council to be reconvened and everybody re-vote again. So that's why they couldn't sort of combine them all together into one. So the first of, so this is the second one, B12 AGM delegates. This was put forward by the Prairies Northwest Territories. This drops it from 1 to 200 to 1 to 300, which gives us 648 total delegates instead of 800 and whatever we have now, or 506 if you go for the 1 for 400. This will be, if the first one, B1, is passed, this will either be withdrawn or ruled out of order. If B1 doesn't pass, the SP group is in favor of this because it reduces the size of the AGM. Not as much as we would like, but it reduces the size. B13, AGM delegates by the NR group. The NR is the engineers, and engineers. They use a sliding scale for delegates. The math that the NR group gave is different than the math from that was checked by that the finance came up with. I poked them about it and they said it's not our job to verify the group math. This is what numbers we came up with. It is weird math. It's got 1 for 200, and then if you go over a certain size, it's 1 for 300, and over a bigger size, it's 1 for 400. It'll be withdrawn or ruled out of order if the previous delegate count motions pass. The SP recommendation is in favor of this, but again, the math is weird. So we're going to be pushing the NR group to sort of clarify their math on this if this comes up to a vote or debate.
Because it's the one that gives it kind of a sliding scale, right? So that you kind of decrease the IT vote so they can't keep just voting through everything that's in their favor, right?
Yeah.
It kind of like evens out the decision making across the groups and not just putting it all in the power of the biggest group.
Yeah, it reduces the power of the IT group, the AFS group, and the NCR region.
Right.
The interesting thing is, by the NR group calculations, it results in the groups having 260 delegates and the regions 259. But the finance department does the calculations as the groups at 281 and the regions at 284. So I do not agree with the regions having more power, which is why I'm going to be really poking the NR group to find out what the heck's going on with their math. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
I'm fine.
All right. So just so you know, we are recording this.
Okay.
So if you don't want your face on your screen or anything, turn off your camera and turn off your microphone, please.
Yeah.
I just
Sorry.
have a question about how do you, So are they're going to be in the or? Do you think they're going to be presented in the order that they're here? Which I don't know how
Yeah.
they came up with deciding. And what's the problem? I mean, the probability is we're not going to get through all. There's a lot of stuff, right? So are you expecting that some are going to be withdrawn before we actually make it, or it's just if we never make it to B13, well, that's too bad. We're just we're
Pretty
not gonna
much,
make it
yeah.
there.
The order in which it's going to go is first financial, then bylaws, then policy. And within each section, it's going to be the resolutions posted, submitted by the board of directors and the advisory council first, then groups and regions, and at the bottom end or the end of the line is by individual member resolutions. So we will get to B13, that's for sure. I'm figuring
You think so?
I think so.
I mean, our past record has not been great, but anyway.
Well, we've gotten through most of the times we can get through at least 20 or 30 resolutions.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay. Thanks.
Hopefully, but you may have just jinxed us. It's like saying it's quiet here in a emergency room or a fire department. All right, so next up, B14, date of elections of officers and directors. It doesn't change the date or the length of time of the election period, but what it just does is the notice of the start of the campaign period is given earlier in the summer. So it gives the people that are running for board of directors, it gives them more time to prepare so that they know when the things start, when everything is going to kick off. Next up is B15, B21, and B22. This deals with making it easier for retired members to rejoin after being removed from their membership from PIPS due to late payment of fees. This greatly reduces the discretion of the board of directors, and I am against this. This was presented by the RE group. This is a case that there's been a number of retired members who have been abusing the ability to delay paying their fees and only pay them when they decided they wanted to participate or something happening was going on. In addition, when the dues change came in about in the beginning of January 1st, 2025, there were a number of retired members that did not pay their fees, the updated dues amounts, despite 4 invoices, and they were removed. And they've been fighting against it, and it's caused an extremely large amount of staff work due to this. So I am against these 3, which are dealing with, again, reinstatement of retired members after their membership has been termination for not paying their dues.
Marcel,
We
so B21 and B22 doesn't specifically talk about retired members. So it was more like general members. Oh,
Right.
because c'est un ancien membre. Because I was just wondering if there are other kind of members in the union that could be impacted by that kind of situation.
There are affiliate members.
Okay.
These are people who are just like from a different union or whatever that we invite to so that they can attend meetings and whatnot, but they don't get any benefits. They don't have any rights. They're not voting members. They're just affiliate members. But there are only retired members, and affiliate members are the only ones whose dues are not automatically taken off their paycheck.
Okay.
They're the only ones that could be removed due to non-payment of fees.
So people who are on leave are safe then, because they're
Yes.
not paying union dues. I assume they can't participate in union. I don't know exactly what the rules are because I never looked into it. But when you're on leave, you're not paying union dues. Therefore, you're not a union member. So what happens if you're on extended leave?
You're still entitled to it. I believe there's provisions in the bylaws to cover people who are on say parental leave or leave without pay. But the length of time it takes for someone to be suspended or removed due to late payment of fees is on the order of years. And so I don't think there are many, if any, regular members that this would be impacted by.
Okay. You would know if you were
Yes.
getting, okay, perfect.
And the board of directors, let's say, and Kim can vouch this, someone asked what happens if someone is in a coma for 2 years and so can't pay their fees and then comes out of it. The board of directors has the discretion to override the current rules which prevent people from being, to get people reinstated. So if you're sick or whatever, something happens and you can't, through extraordinary circumstances, the board of directors does have them. There are methods to be reinstated. These bylaws remove the discretion of the board of directors to make those decisions. So B16, I believe this is the first of the SP motions. This is virtual AGMs. One AGM every 3 years will be virtual. This is going to be a large, significant cost savings. I believe close to $1.5 or $2 million per AGM that would be saved. I am not sure why the resolution subcommittee said that it's confusing. The motion seemed pretty clear to me. It allows the discretion of the board of directors to choose when to start the one every 3 years. So this is the SP recommends members vote in favor of this.
I was going to ask you that because it said intent is ambiguous.
The resolution subcommittee, I have issues with the resolution subcommittee. There were significant errors in the comments and from the resolution subcommittee and the finance committee when the resolutions were initially posted. Significant issues like giant chunks missing, all the French ones being the English ones, it not being the same from English to French, with the French having more details. There were significant issues with that. Oui, Martin.
Yes, I think it's a easy way just to save a bunch of money, but to have a chance to attend to a virtual AGM in the past, it's not easy. And do you think, or maybe, do you expecting that maybe if you have our next AGM next year in virtual, we'll have 600 people attending the virtual meeting?
Don't know. It is very difficult. Like I've done a couple of virtual AGMs myself, including the 4-day one 2 years ago in Montreal. It was rough. I was in a hotel room for the 4 days while my wife was recovering from surgery. It was rough. It is not easy doing the whole time virtual with the headset on, focusing on the screen. By the end of the 4 days, I had a blinding headache. It is rough. But once every 3 years, we think it's worth it for the cost savings.
Because I just try to figure out maybe just probably better just to skip one AGM every 3 years instead of trying to have an AGM virtual with less people. And I don't know what is how we could just go through all the motion and have uh, good representation of people voting on the motion and so on.
Currently the bylaws say we have to have a AGM every year, and the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act also require that we have an AGM every year. So we can't just decide to skip a year. That would require us changing our bylaws and somehow removing ourselves from being a not-for-profit corporation, which would be a whole other host of issues that would be complicated. So we think it's worthwhile pushing forward. I don't think it's going to pass, but it's going to open the discussion. People
Yeah,
like
good.
traveling. People like traveling, but it's going to open the discussion. And we think that's important to at least have the discussion so it gets in people's minds that, plus, it's kind of hypocritical for members to say, no, it's important. We have to go in person. This is important work to be done in person. We have to collaborate and work in teams and get together, and then turn around and tell the employer that no, we don't need to go to the office in person to collaborate and work. We can do all our work effectively virtually. So
Right,
it's
but but Marcel, the difference is you're asking people to be on a
yeah,
meeting for 2 full straight days. And I think that was an issue. If you were in meetings, even if you're in person, it's already as long, right?
yeah. But again, we think it's worthwhile having the discussion, at least opening the discussion. I
Sure.
would love it if it would pass, but if I'm being honest, I don't think it will. There's too many people that like to travel on the union dime.
But is the intent for the board of directors to return the AGM to Ottawa indefinitely and just keep it in Ottawa? If we're talking about cost savings, and
Yes,
then
I believe
because if you have it in Ottawa, then already, I mean, you could already say people in the city, whatever. I mean, whatever.
when
There's all sorts of things you could do to save money by having it within the city itself, right?
when we submitted this motion, there was no idea that the board of directors was going to do a cap of 500 in-person delegates. We had no idea. Would we have, if we've known they were going to do that, would we have submitted this? I don't know. We had a lengthy discussion over this. I don't know if we would have submitted it. Would it have been a different thing? We don't know. We'll see. Having it in Ottawa will significantly reduce costs. We'll see if how that goes.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to save money and to have a better environmental print as well. So I think it's worth to have that discussion. And I think one every 3 years is not too much, even if I understand it's more tedious, obviously, than in person. But if we're starting to raise the dues, like we need more money. So I think somehow it's a good way to save a little bit and to put more money elsewhere. But also, just in a comment, and it's not necessarily related to this motion, but all motion to reduce the AGM. I feel the calculation from finance are not that fair in terms of virtual. How much does it cost to have delegates in virtual? Because like in their comments, it's the same amount. It seems to be costing the same amount if you have 500 delegates or 850. But in my mind, there's still at least 1 day salary recovery. So there's definitely a difference there. So it's a little bit confusing.
The calculations from the finance committee, they calculated the tech support, the IT, to be the same as if we were all in person. So you look in the back in IT, you've got all the headsets and the clickers and all that. We have issues with the numbers that they presented. They also had hospitality events in the cost. So we don't think it's a fair calculation. In addition, a lot of the calculations, I think they changed it today, but they did the calculations comparison to a 500 person AGM. They just recently, I think today, they changed it to an uncapped 800 and some odd member AGM. So I'm unhappy that they waited until literally the last minute to put accurate numbers there, and that, as Sarah pointed out, the numbers for virtual are not accurate at all. I just think they didn't make any effort to try to do any calculations, and they just said tech support for virtual will just cost it the same amount as the tech support for in person. But in virtual, you don't have the overhead projectors that needed. You don't have the speakers. You don't have the mics set up. You don't have the cameras. You don't have everything else that the tech support that is needed for virtual. Guru.
Yeah. So, Marcel, I just wanted to follow up. Probably you might have answered this indirectly, but my question is regarding the cost estimate. So you said that finance committee produced the cost. Do they is it, can this be shared with the members, or it is just only for the ACs or board of directors? When these resolutions are being passed or being discussed, would the numbers will be actually being presented simultaneously?
That I don't know. Brian and myself, we got numbers from the finance department. I don't know if we can share them because it might some of these numbers they might have to deal with contracts for purchases and stuff like that. I don't know if we can share them. It'll be something to be asked at the AGM.
Yeah, because I mean, to put everything in perspective, if you're saying that there is a significant cost reduction or significant cost increase, to the members to well inform them before they vote, if the numbers are presented with the motions, how much it would cost, that would make people like me can would change my mind based on how much is a cost saving or how much it is going to cost more. That would change people's perspective about the motion.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, and it's something we're going to be pushing for.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's a very high level cost estimate
Yeah,
on the website. Like with the motion, there's a comment from finance committee, but it doesn't give the breakdown. It's just yeah, very high level, sort of what the cost would be in person, what the cost would be based on the resolution, and then what the savings would be. And you're right, Marcel, it was just added there with like the uncapped AGM because initially it was just the 500.
I'm going to be reaching out. I'll be sending an email later on tonight because I knew they were updating the resolutions, so I wanted to see how much information they would be sharing. So I'm good now. They've given the limited amount for capped, uncapped, and whatnot. I'm going to be sending an email to the finance committee asking if it's permitted for me to share the breakdown that was shared with Brian and myself. But like I said, I don't know if I can. I don't know if that's something if I can share, or if there's any numbers in there that because of contracts signed or whatnot, if it's confidential. I don't know. I don't want to share something that I'm not allowed to share.
No, absolutely. But please try that. Like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that'll be great. Like, I mean, if you could send an email to finance and just poke them a little bit to see what you could and cannot share, or if they can share themselves, like when during the AGM, if they have the cost estimate, I don't see a reason why they cannot share with the members.
Well, because like I said, and like this cost estimate, some of the numbers are just wrong.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I don't want to share something that is going to, if they're just guessing or estimations because they haven't done a virtual AGM since 2021, COVID was the last one. I don't know that they have the current numbers. I don't know that they were able to come up with the numbers, so I don't want to blame them for not being able to come up with accurate estimates for that. So I'm gonna ask. We don't know what we're gonna get.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Thank you all for the questions, by the way. I love these discussions. B17, these are virtual special AGMs. Again, this is the second one produced by the SP Group. This is for all special AGMs to be held virtually. I am in favor of this. Special AGMs are incredibly rare. In the close to 20 years I've been in PIPS, there has been one special AGM, and that was, I believe, about 10 or 15 years ago when there was trying to kick a member of the board of directors off the board of directors. Since then, there hasn't been one. And I think these are done on one specific topic, and they're usually about half a day. So I think those are very well can be done virtually. So I'm in favor of those. Next up, and that is an impressive typo. So this is B18 AGM delegates. This was put forward by the Quebec region. That should be from 1 to 200 to every 1 to 250. Sarah, can you confirm that? I think it's 1 for 250.
Yes, it's 250.
Okay. To give 759 total delegates. Again, as I mentioned, this will be withdrawn or ruled out of order if previous delegate count motions have passed. If all the other ones fail, please vote. The SP recommendation is to vote for this one. Like, I don't know if it's coincidence, but if you can see the order of the resolutions for the delegate size is to start at the one that shrinks the AGM the most to the one with the least shrinkage. So ideally, the first one passes, or as soon as one passes, all the other ones after that will be withdrawn or ruled out of order, because it will be decided that the AGM delegation has already discussed this and voted on it, and so there would be no need to reopen the discussion.
Okay, because I know last year there was some discussion of even if things were discussed, you could overturn essentially by then voting one of the other ones.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Because you could essentially say, yes, put down to 300 and then cool, now we're going to put it back to 250 because whatever. So in theory, though, that should just end all the other ones.
in
Even
theory,
if people,
yes.
But if people don't withdraw it, do they have to stand for discussion?
Well, if they don't withdraw it, from my understanding, there's been pressure put on the chair. I don't know who the chair is. I wasn't at the AC when, did the AC mention it, Kim? But to reopen it, there's a specific procedure called reopening discussion, and it's not very well used. We do have some people that would be willing to do that. I'm looking at Robert Tellier, or who's the other guy from IT? The other French guy from IT.
Denis
Denis.
Casey.
Denis Casey. They're very well aware of the procedures. There's a couple other people, but it's a bit more tricky to reopen discussion once the decision has already been made. The chair could easily say the AGM has already discussed and accepted one for 400 members. I'm not going to entertain discussion on one for 300 or one for 250, because if the AGM wanted to consider those, they would have rejected the first motion.
Okay.
So,
I mean, it makes sense. It just doesn't always make sense at the AGM, right?
It's the AGM. Common sense.
Yeah,
Keep your common sense at the door.
Yeah, Marcel, just make sure to correct your slide.
Yeah.
Since I see one on 3,250.
That would be an awesome AGM. There'd be like
3 people.
I'm in favor.
Next up is retired members' dues. Currently, retired members pay 8% of regular member dues. This is compared to affiliate members who effectively have no rights or benefits from being part of the union, who currently pay 25%. And so this is a motion, this was put forward by the Prairies Northwest Territories region to move it to 25%. The SP group is in favor of that. And that's it for the bylaws resolutions. So now we're on to all of the policy resolutions. So P01 carbon offset credits. This is done, submitted jointly by the SP
Sorry,
group.
Marcel, I have a quick question. Can I interrupt for you?
Is it talking about P01?
No, about the bylaws.
Okay.
I'll be very quick. So you mentioned that there are several bylaw resolutions related to the delegates that is coming to the floor.
Yep.
I was wondering, and they have a specific number. So one is 12, another one is 19, etc., etc. In all over the place in terms of the sequence where it is coming. So I was wondering, instead of doing like that, would the chair or the committee would be willing to collectively use all those motions in one shot to say that, okay, let's have a discussion about the delegates, number of delegates, whether it should be 1 to 400 or 1 to 200 or 1 to 300 or whatever the number is. Because all those motions are varying only based on the numbers, number of delegates. So is there any provision in our PIPS bylaw to do like that in the AGM?
Based on the instructions or the order that they gave in the at the very beginning, when they were talking about when they gave the list of the various resolutions, that finance starts first, excuse me, then bylaws, then policy, and that it goes in order of AC board of directors and AC resolutions first, then groups and regions, then individual. In order to change that up, it would require a motion from the floor right from the start. Or they would require them to the chair would require, or someone would have to move a motion to consider all of them together. However, just because the chair wants to do it doesn't necessarily mean that the advisory council or the NR, the various groups or regions that put forward motions, that they will want them all to be handled in a giant mess, because then it just gets confusing. Because which one are you debating about? Are you debating about the one for 400, the one for 300? Are you debating about the sliding scale? Are you debating about the one for 250? It's impossible to tell. By combining them all together, it would make it impossible to have a realistic, useful discussion. So they might put them in all one after the other, like bang, 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 bang. But again, that would result in changing the order of precedence that they had set, where the board of directors and AC resolutions get treated first. So it might happen, but it would require a motion from the floor to handle it. And I'm not sure. That would take up at least an hour and a half of time. So I hope no one does that. Yes, Danielle. If you're talking, you're muted. Am I still streaming? Am I still talking?
Yeah, I think Dan might be frozen.
Okay. I'll move on. And if Kim, if you can just message him, maybe try so we can reconnect, and I'll get back to him when he gets back. So P01 carbon offset credits. This was put forward by the SP group and the board of directors. This is to purchase carbon offset, not carbon capture, carbon offset credits to cover air travel, to cover the carbon that's produced by air travel on behalf of PIPS. It's got a cap of 50K a year. For reference, in 2024, it would have been about 43K. The SP group was in favor of this. Climate change is real. This is not an attempt to shame people. It would be done globally by group and individually by board of directors members. So the groups, like the SP group, would have one global amount as that was, distance traveled. The NR group, the regions, would have one global amount for each region, each group. But you can basically count that now by saying, okay, Kim's coming from St. John's. I can calculate pretty accurately the distance she's going to travel to get to a meeting in Toronto. And it'll be off by maybe a couple hundred kilometers, depending if she goes through Halifax or Montreal or Ottawa or straight to Toronto, but it'll be close enough for government work. So this is not an attempt to shame, just the fact climate change is real. And this is a way that we can undo some of the harm that we do by traveling.
But I understand, where does the money go exactly?
It would there are organizations that do projects that offset carbon, and these we would pick. There's no one organization recommended. We do point out there's a group called Less, or an organization called Less, but there are organizations that are well recommended, I want to say reviewed, that's a bad term, but they're very respected, and they do projects that offset carbon. For example, planting trees, getting I'm just picking ideas out of my head here that I've remembered being talked about. Changing a village in Africa from using a gas powered engine to using wind or solar or hydroelectricity to produce electricity. So it would be through a reputable organization that deals with specific things like that. Now I've got 3 chats and I don't know. Okay, yeah. So Dan's mentioned his internet's unstable, and yeah, so the others will likely get withdrawn. So next up is P02, Human Rights and Diversity Committee member selection process. This is a motion to make sure that the membership of the committee has someone from each equity-seeking group. Membership will be determined by members from the equity-seeking caucuses, and will shift it from regional choices to an equity-focused model. Currently, membership on committees is determined by regional directors, and it's very political. If anyone's looked at the membership on the Science Advisory Council, there are a lot of people on that council, on that committee, that have no science background whatsoever and are making decisions based on science. So I'm in favor of this. Next up, P03 CLC convention delegates. This is to go from letting the regions and groups pick everything to having letting the board of directors pick half of the CLC convention delegates. The CLC convention is once every 3 years, I think. And last time we only sent half of the members that we were entitled to anyways. So I'm in favor of this. Again, taking it out of the politicization of for the resolution of the committees. All right.
I was wondering, do we know why do they send only half of the people they could send?
Because it's expensive.
Okay, so
last time it was in New York, and the hotels were right downtown. It was 5 days. So you're talking 7 nights hotels in downtown New York, 5 days of salary recovery, plus the extra cost for daily incidentals and per diems. It gets very expensive very quickly. Plus the cost that we have to pay to the CLC to have a delegate attend. So it gets expensive. And I think we had a lot of people that I don't think enough people applied who showed interest to fill up all the slots we could get. The people that did go said it was really useful. I think Brian went last time and he said it was really interesting discussion. So he said it's definitely useful, but once every 3 years is more than enough. So next up, P04, policy on negotiations and labor disputes. Change how the strike pay is calculated. I'm not going to go into the math because there just wasn't enough room on my slide. It was last updated in 2005. So it's 20 years later. And it doesn't define what a picket line activity is. So in theory, someone could just show up, leave, and get paid. That comment was brought up at the advisory council. However, the definition of picket line policy a picket line activity is in a policy, and the board of directors can just change that policy without needing to go through the AGM. So I'm in favor of this. $50 a day might have been great in 2005, but we're in 2025 now.
The motion in French is not the same as the one in English here.
Yes.
Because I look, yesterday I was so confused because the one in French doesn't make any sense. Like there's two different values, but I think it's a mistake. So the compensation would be your union dues. That's the intent of the.
I think twice your union dues. Like I don't have the math in front of
No,
me.
it said the value of the compensation per day of pay lost shall equal the monthly regular
Okay.
member fee.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, why? I see somewhere else it says twice the monthly regular fee.
I think there's like
But
different
that's for
scenarios,
when,
right?
yeah, but that's for a specific kind of activities.
Yeah,
Like
but
when less than 10% of the members in a bargaining unit are striking, then they can have more money.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
Like one's a full strike and the other one is some sort of rotating or other type
Yeah.
of activity, right?
Yeah.
It is a very dense thing to try and wade through what they're trying to do.
yeah.
Okay, but I'm all for to increase that.
From $50 a day, yes. Yes. P05.
amazing. Yeah, Marcel, it's amazing because we're just voting or just proposing a politic about increasing a strike day salary, but we don't have a lot of money in end for strikes. So
I
is it
believe
is it
we have about
a bit
20 million.
strange? No?
We have a large strike fund because we haven't been on strike. The last group was on strike. Well, there was the Chalk River professional group that went on strike for a couple of days, a week, I think. But before that, I think we're talking like 15 or 20 years. So we have a fairly decent strike fund. And it is, I think it's on the order of, I'm not even going to guess. I'm not even going to guess. We have a large strike fund, enough to cover a couple weeks of, targeted strike activity. So we do have enough money to cover it.
And I haven't looked at the budget yet for this year, but I remember at the Quebec Steward Council, Sean was invited, and if I remember well, he said that they put more money in the strike fund this year. So
I think I heard that PIPS is going to show a surplus this year. A small one of about a couple $100,000, but a surplus, which I like that. P05 activity guides. This is to produce 4 guides for frontline organizing to protect members' rights, building unity and solidarity, creative tactics for engaging the employer, and formal labor actions when all else fails. I'm in favor of this. The SP group, when we were looking in, if we went on the strike route, what would happen? What resources do we have? And we realized that there are all of the resources at PIPS are out of date by about 15 or 20 years. So this is just part of updating additional guides for PIPS for use by PIPS members in different situations. I'm in favor of this. Anything that I, as a steward or activist, like we all are on this, that we can say when someone comes up and says, how can I engage the employer to put pressure? If I can pull out a guide, a link, and say, here are 20 ways that you can do this, just because it's a guide that PIPS has presented, I would love that.
Why does it cost so high?
Because they don't exist right now. So they're guessing on the cost for a committee to make them, and that salary reimbursement. Knowing PIPS, that's also going to include travel to PIPS headquarters, plus probably, I'm going to guess, outside consultants. So just generic development of something that currently doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist at all, or it's updating things that already exist?
I think maybe formal labor actions. There was a strike handbook a long time ago, but I don't know, that one might be updated, has probably in the updating, but the other three, they do not exist right now.
And there would be any way to leverage what, say, exists in PSAC?
I believe that that would be part of the things that they would be asked to do, to not reinvent the wheel, but to go with, look what others have and go from there, make it, a PIPS version of that. When the finance committee, when they makes guesses for these, for how much they're going to cost, they go for the worst case scenario. So it would be probably 6 or 8 people, 6 meetings in person a year, with everyone being outside of the NCR. So flights and salary reimbursement and meetings during the week, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Yeah, it does say 8 people and 2 in-person meetings. All right.
So next up, P06, provide personal email addresses to constituent bodies. As currently written, it only includes groups and, or I believe it's subgroups and regions. It doesn't include groups. It doesn't include the separate employers. So it needs to be modified to, it's probably going to be amended to fix that. But this is something that is absolutely needed in order to allow constituent bodies to communicate rapidly with members. The SP group is strongly in favor of this. Yes, Jeremy.
Just a quick note that we talked about this in our subgroup. Excuse me, sorry. And I think we agree with the sentiment and we think it's a good idea, but we noted that there's some risk on our part to be managing people's personal information. So I think our approach is going to be to echo you and Brian and really suggest people get PIPSC accounts.
Oh. That is something that, yeah, you've all seen the number of every email we send out now is harassing you to get a PIPS email address. It makes life so much easier because it's something, it's not your personal email address. It's not going to your home email. It's something that is specifically for union stuff. Ideally, when you sign up membership, you're automatically given a PIPS email address, but that's hindsight 2020 whole thing. So the SP group is in favor of this.
But I'm still confused. Like, why? I mean, the subgroup, they do have that information, no? Like when they request, when they want to do like a lunch and learn.
It's work email addresses. When I ask for an email, for email listing of 50 Victoria Street, it's the work email address that is provided. Not the personal.
How would
Not
that
the
be?
personal. Ah, okay. So, and it's the same for the groups. Like we do have email address for all our members, but it's their work information. And now they want to ask their personal information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the difference is that what they're asking for. So for me, they would get, well, before I created my PIPS email address, it would be marcel.baudouin@gmail.com, my personal email address. Ideally, they give everybody a @pips.ca email address so people don't have to worry about, and I understand it. People may not be comfortable giving their personal email address to someone else to get spam and whatnot. Fully understand that. So ideally, it's an @pips.ca email address. But again, I don't think this is going to pass because I think there's a lot of people who will be reluctant to give their personal email addresses. But I think that this is an important starting point to get the discussion going, to encourage people to get pips.ca email addresses. Next up, P07 to P09. These are all done by the advisory council. These have all been withdrawn. P07 was about the website. I've heard rumors that the new website is going to be announced or launched at the AGM. I think that was mentioned at the advisory council. Am I misremembering, Kim?
No, that's right.
Also P08 lobbying and the steward program. The steward program is making some progress, so I think that's why they dropped that. And the lobbying, I think they're they withdrew this. I don't know why, because I missed that part of the discussion.
I think with 3 of these, the reason they were put forward initially was because of lack of progress, but now that there has been progress on all of these things, including lobbying, because we just had a regional lobbying campaign, and now this week they're doing lobby week in Ottawa. So the advisory council decided to withdraw them since like things are moving forward. So yeah.
Thank you very much. So, P10, again, this is another one. Provide personal email addresses to constituent bodies. Similar to P06, it has the same issues. It'll be withdrawn or ruled out of order if previous email address motion passes. P11, meetings of committees of the board. So last year or the year before, the SP group managed to get changed that from 6 in-person meetings, that it would be a maximum of 4 in-person meetings with the remainder virtual up to the budget. They're given a budget for 6 in-person meetings, and that they could spend 4 in person and the remainder virtual. The change is to get rid of the virtual and have, again, maximum of 6 in-person meetings. I have 2 issues with this. First of all, this is just a clear attempt that people want to travel. And second of all, this makes it a maximum of 6, no matter if the needs of the committee requires more. For example, the bylaws and policy committee or the resolution subcommittee or the AGM committee, they would be held to a maximum of 6 meetings. Even if they needed to have more for whatever reason, they would be required to go to the board of directors, submit a motion to the board of directors, which means it'd get to the steering committee for the board of directors to get it onto the agenda, to get it discussed and voted on, which is a pain in the butt. It's long and extensive. So the SP recommendation is to vote against this. Next up, P12, guidelines on constituent body elections. This is just housekeeping to change the language to reflect the new PIPS election methods. We don't have ballots anymore. We don't have individual voting keys. So it's just to change the language to reflect the new voting platform that we use. So I'm in favor of this. Next up, P13, a French alias for @pips.ca email addresses. This is to allow Francophone members to use @IPFPC, Institut Professionnel de la Fonction Publique du Canada email addresses. Back in the 2010s, this existed. There was some members, Stéphane Aubry, I believe, had mentioned that he had it back in the 2000 or 2010s. This would be relatively trivial for IT to do. So we are all in favor of this. Anyone who knows me, I've been a strong proponent of making sure that Francophone members are treated equally to Anglophone members, and having either @IPFPC or @PIPS-IPFPC, the same way that for me it's ISED is @ISED/-ISDE. There's a way to have it reflect the bilingual nature of PIPS. So the SP recommendation is in favor of this.
And was this just an oversight? Like, why did they not just have the dual name to start with?
I think it was something that you could request, and then loss of cultural knowledge, institutional knowledge had disappeared, and
no, but I mean, it should have just been by default PIPS-IPFPC.ca. Like you said, as far as I know, all the government ones are that both names, English, French, depending on where your department is, where it starts, right?
No idea why they didn't do that. No idea.
Because I mean, ideally, this proposition would be just having the 2 separate ones, because that makes it confusing that it's the same institution, right?
Yes.
It's just everyone having the same one being the same institution that has both names.
Yeah, there are simple ways to fix this. It's whether people will push for it or not. P14, allocations for branches and subgroups. This is to increase the allowances by 25%. I'm against this. Before we start, yes, we have a small surplus this year, but I think it's better to have this small surplus, continue to get the PIPS financial house in order with various, we've only seen 1 year of financial management under this new plan. We've seen issues with how they're working on meetings and whatnot with the SP group. We've seen that. I would like to get that stable before we start increasing the spending for other parts. P15 subgroup visits. Currently under the PIPS bylaws, the group president or their alternate can attend 1/3 of subgroup AGMs every year. However, because you've got regions like Winnipeg, I think has 4 subgroups, Vancouver has 2, Toronto has 3, Montreal has 1. There's some places that have numerous subgroups. So as opposed to trying to force the subgroups to have their AGMs all around the same time, this would allow the expanded to include non-AGM meetings. So the subgroup president could attend a lunch and learn and have the cost be reimbursed by PIPS and not covered by the SP group or the subgroup itself. In the end, it'll save money because the president or the alternate will be able to make 1 trip to Winnipeg as opposed to 4 trips to Winnipeg. P16 was withdrawn. I have no idea what it was about. It was withdrawn before it was even posted on the webpage. P17, group AGM delegates. This is for group AGMs, make the policy where it's the greater of 1 delegate for 200 or the group exec size +1. This is to make sure there are some groups now that the executive committee, who all automatically go to the AGMs, is larger than the people that show up by membership, which means the exec can just push through railroad stuff right through when it really should be the members who have the opportunity to decide things. So I'm in favor of this. P18, constituent body minutes, meeting minutes. This was put forward by the SP group. This was to have them published within a month of being approved and submitted. This could require a lot more staff. This is, again, the SP group is in favor of this. That being said, it looks like the PIPS has gotten a lot better at posting them, and it might have just been a small log jam of stuff that was out of the ordinary. So the majority of the AC were against this, to the point where the subtext of this is a stupid resolution. Why is the SP group even proposing this? That was the subtext of a lot of people that thought of that were commenting on that. In addition, there was that some constituent bodies wouldn't want their members to see what they discussed. I have issues with that, but this is not the time nor place to talk about what other groups or subgroups are doing. So P19, the policy and financial support for member participation meal stop. So this is for, when you travel after a meeting, the meeting finishes at 5, as long as you can get home by 8 p.m., including a 1-hour travel stop for supper, you are not entitled to a hotel the night the meeting ends. In the same way, right now, it's if you have to leave your house before 7 a.m. to get to a meeting that starts at 9, you are entitled to a hotel the night before. What this does is adds a 1-hour meal stop to eat breakfast. So it would basically be if you have to leave your house before 8, you would be entitled to a hotel the night before. There are places in Ottawa where, due to the traffic, it'll take you an hour to get from the outskirts of Ottawa to the meeting in downtown Ottawa.
That's not the outskirts. be realistic, Marcel. I am 8 kilometers away, and it takes me an hour and a half
Yeah,
on transit to get to our office, which is downtown. So that's, realistically, anywhere Ottawa, anywhere Toronto is going to take you a good hour in traffic.
yeah. And if they want it to be similar to the evening, great, then have it leaving the house at 6 a.m. So you've got 2 hours of drive and an hour for breakfast. Although, if you're eating an hour for breakfast, you have issues because a good breakfast at a nice little diner takes you 15 minutes and you're done.
Marcel, I will say part of where this came from wasn't just for breakfast. So it was like for a meeting. So for instance, like Stewart Council starts in the afternoon. So say it's in Halifax, because this came from the Atlantic region.
Yeah.
So someone has to leave Prince Edward Island or New Brunswick to drive there in the morning, and it doesn't allow for any meal stop, breakfast or lunch.
Okay.
So, but it doesn't, like, I think it could have been worded better.
Yeah.
Because, right?
I wasn't aware of that, so I wasn't, but the way it's worded, you're going to get a lot of people in the
Oh, I know.
NCR and Toronto attending meetings, all of a sudden deciding entitled to a hotel the night before, which if you're in the NCR, if they wanted to say a 2-hour drive, if you're having to drive over 2 hours, you're entitled to a meal stop or the hotel the night before, maybe, but just giving it a 1-hour meal stop means that if it's more than an hour's drive, you're entitled to a hotel the night before, which, as Celine pointed out, even myself, I'm 6 kilometers from my office. And if I take the bus, it takes me 40 minutes to get there. Depending on traffic, if I take a taxi, it takes me 35 minutes to get there. And I'm on the same side of the river as my office is on the same side of the river as my house. If I'm trying to get across the river, you're looking at an hour easily. So as worded, this is poorly worded, so I'm against this. It might be able to be fixed on the floor of the AGM, but I think this is going to require more fixing than is available to be done in a floor amendment. Just because the Atlantic region traveling from PEI to Halifax by car, they don't have to worry about so much traffic that it's going to take them an hour to drive 8 kilometers. Or in Montreal, trying to travel through Montreal for a meeting, same issue.
Yeah, because I think like to give a meal stop for the evening, it's because like there's no way you can eat, like your meeting is done and you're hungry and you're not at home. But for breakfast, I mean, you start from your home, so I mean, you have access to your food before you go to your meeting. So, but I understand it's for a specific reason, as you say, Kim. And the motion says a meal stop, like it doesn't say specifically breakfast. But I understand. I agree with you, Marcel. It opens the door to a lot of people stuck in traffic to go to the city. So.
I wonder if a solution to something like this would be to, rather than talking about time, but maybe we should talk about distance. If you have to travel X number of kilometers to get to the meeting, then, you might be allowed to have a lunch, because like in Kim's example, I mean, it happens all over the Atlantic, right? Everybody's going to Halifax. They're driving like from Charlottetown, it's 3 hours. From Fredericton, it's 4 hours. And that's hours, but I mean, you're talking hundreds of kilometers, right? And I wonder if that would solve that issue to avoid what you're talking about, 8 kilometers taking an hour,
Yeah, so I
I
think
think
there's a way to fix this, but I'm not knowledgeable enough about travel time and distances. I think this is going to require a little bit more work than just on the floor of the AGM. with better
Anyway,
wording, I would support
I'm
it.
not sure I'm not sure we'll go through the policy 19, quite sure. But I think the idea is good to share with Kimberly, just the people from Atlantic, they could just work on it. Because as example, if I finish a meeting at PIPS in Ottawa at 5, I can it's hard to make it at home in Montreal at 7. So I could be a little bit tired. So it could be nice to stop in between and just have uh, the fees to cover my lunch, but not necessarily just I'm looking for an extra night in Ottawa. I think that's the nuance between one and the other one.
So next up, we're almost done. P20 PIPS elections transparency. This is just to require the people put their classification and their category, regular, retired, on all candidate bios in all elections. SP group is all in favor of that. It should be done all the time. P21 policy on Better Together funding to support other unions on strike. This is to use Better Together funding of the unions. The Better Together pool is a very small budget. So it really should be focused on PIPS members. If they want to create something to support other unions, then they should do something outside of the Better Together function, or change how Better Together envelope of money is funded. P22 policy on constituent body allocation increases. This is to change it from about 25% to increase it by about 5%. Again, I'm against this just because I think I want to see, before we start increasing how much we give constituent bodies, I want to see another couple of years of PIPS having good financial stewardship, handling the money well, strict and tight on their finances and the budgeting before we start upping how much we spend everywhere else. P23, statement on resource extraction in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is just to lobby the government of Canada to hold tech companies accountable. I think PIPS has enough trouble lobbying. We should be focused on lobbying for our own members, especially with workforce adjustment going on and the cuts to the public service going on. I don't think we want to be splitting our time in lobbying for both PIPS stuff and for things in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I think we need to be focusing on our members right now before focusing on stuff outside our members. P24, amendment to the policy on constituent body allocations. This is for events. Currently, the restriction is $50 per member who attend the events. So if I go with my entire family, there's four of us total, it's $50 because I'm attending. The policy to change it is to $50 per person, so that if my family of 4 goes, that it's $200. I am against this. While it's nice to have family members attend, I don't think that PIPS should be funding events to that extent for family members. Again, I don't think that's responsible use of members' dues.
So just to clarify though, the $50 per member, if whatever event they're running, they can, for the $50, have the member plus their family,
Yep.
whatever they put, that's still allowed.
Yes.
Okay.
P25, divestment from genocide. This is the Israel one. This is honestly too political a topic. It's an oversimplification of a situation that covers decades and thousands of incidents. I don't know enough to offer any recommendations, so I am not even going to recommend anything on this. I'm going to stop it right there. And it's P25. We're not going to get anywhere close to this. P26, shift workers attending PIPS events and meetings. This is similar to what happened last year. It's asking the PIPS Board of Directors to see how things can be organized to help shift workers. I am against this. If a shift worker wants to participate, they can take time off with cost recovery. If the employer says no, then that's a consultation team problem, not an AGM problem. This is asking the board of directors to deal with it. It's like asking Mark Carney to look into why the cafeteria on Parliament Hill is changed their plates. So, and this is a comment from Brian. This is life as a shift worker. Often you can't attend stuff. However, on the plus side, he does mention that shift workers get salary replacement for attending on a Saturday or Sunday, something that non-shift workers don't have access to. This is something that needs to be dealt with at the local level, not at the AGM level. So I am against this. P27 was withdrawn. Again, have no idea what it was about. It was withdrawn before it even made it to the page. P28, accountability for social media statements and subsequent impacts on affected members. This is to have the Human Rights and Diversity Committee deal with complaints to PIPS about PIPS members' postings on social media and to deal with potential human rights violations because of those posts. It's going to be ruled out of order for a number of reasons. There already exists a framework in PIPS, the dispute resolution method policy, when there's problems between members, and that includes social media posts. So there's no need to create a specific new path for social media posts. It would allow the human rights, the HRDC, to override the decision of the president of the board of directors, which is not something that is currently allowable in our board bylaws. And it invites members to sit in on disciplinary meetings and discussions, which is a violation of the confidentiality that is currently exists in PIP's disciplinary proceedings. So for all of that, it's going to get ruled out of order. And if someone has issues with actions being taken or not taken by the president of the board of directors, they can go through their director, they can go through their group. There are ways, or their regions, there are ways to deal with it. This is not a valid way to do it. And that is it. Stop sharing. That was long, an hour and a half, but I think it was a good discussion. So anybody, before I kick you all off and stop recording, does anybody have any comments or questions?